Hi, this is Joe Luegers, author of the Mindbridge trilogy. I just wanted to take a second to express my genuine gratitude for you listening to this series that I recorded here in my home studio with my wife Alex narrating the first book and myself narrating this short novella. I also wanted to humbly ask that you hit the subscribe button below this video and help me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers this year in 2022. This will ensure that I can continue uploading audiobooks for free on this channel in the future. And that way you can also get alerted immediately when the second book in this series comes out, hopefully sometime in the spring. Anyway, I hope you enjoy The City and the Island, a Mindbridge novella. The City and the Island, the Mindbridge Trilogy, Book 1.5, by Joe Luegers. Narrated by the author. Editing and proofreading by Emily Bernhardt and Candace Robinson. Author's note. The City and the Island is a novella which takes place between the events of The Bridge, the Mindbridge Trilogy Book 1, and A Path of Branches, the Mindbridge Trilogy Book 2. This story was written exclusively for members of my mailing list, inspired directly by feedback I'd received from readers. You like Max? Well, okay. Here's more Max than you ever thought you needed. You will not find material here which is essential to understanding the next book. What you will find is a deeper look at the unseen forces which have been slowly pushing our characters toward the story's ultimate conclusion. A chance for Max Casey to come to the forefront, and a ceiling fan on steroids. If you're here reading this novella, it's because you are one of my most dedicated readers of the Mindbridge trilogy. For better or worse, this unapologetically weird story is for you. Joe Luegers, writer, musician. 1. He is everywhere and nowhere. Earth. Going up. He is turquoise. He is a turtle. He is a girl. He, who is temporarily titled Tundra, the turquoise turtle, can he just pause a second and say, dang, that alliteration is tasty. It really is the simple pleasures that help keep one's sanity in such an overly complicated duo-verse. Anyway, unpause, cue theme music, crescendo in the quintal harmonies of the horn section. He, who is temporarily titled Tundra the Turquoise Girl Turtle, is fighting for control of the desolate kingdom which is so charmingly, awfully named Woodland. Get it? Wood, land, proper noun. The woodland of woodland, or woodland the woodland. His consciousness further divides as he visualizes the pitch meeting where someone suggested this beautifully stupid name. What if we call it Woodland? Asks the imagined intern. Get it? It's a proper noun. They wipe the theoretical sweat that is suddenly collecting on their fictional brow and await a response from the pretend producer, whose glare must have recently been sharpened. Woodland? Seriously? The idea sounded a lot better in his imaginary imagination. To everyone's surprise, the producer jumps up from his seat, slaps his hand on the desk, and declares, "Give that make-believe man a raise." Back in Woodland, a burning leaf drifts down from the peri-apocalyptic canopy, followed by a flurry of flaming foliage that float through the fraught forest. Tasty. Gunfire, explosions, and nervous chittering echo all around. She, narrowly dodges an exploding acorn thrown from some squirrely assassin. A line of ants march up a nearby tree, each and every little insect carrying a bullet on its back. The first squirrel-turtle war is a desperate bloodbath, but a beautiful one. The graphic horrors of woodland combat, pixelated in the latest ultra-high definition. Oh my Dobbs, he can even see the funiculus on one of the bullet-schlepping eusocial bugs. The funiculus? Was there really someone who cared so much about this project that they made sure to animate in the funiculus? And this person deserves a raise, do they? Asks imaginary Barb from Human Resources. She sips her tea. For doing their job? This generation. Back in my day, we animated funiculi in 3 feet of snow for a single dime and we were happy about it. Hold on. Why are the ants ascending the tree? Have the insects already sided with the Squirrel Republic? Darn you, Ernesto. Time to rally the turtle troops. Going down. He is surfing the internet. His surfboard has flames painted across the deck. The flames make it go faster. Experiencing the internet from within doesn't have to happen in the third dimension, or any dimension at all. It's not really a physical location, just a bunch of ones and zeros. He must be hanging out with humans too much, because his conception of the internet has recently become an actual place. He sees it. He feels it. He smells it. The internet smells disconcerting. He glides across the infinite and yet expanding ocean of knowledge. Even for a mind as great as his, it really is a lot to comprehend. Occasionally, he spots a flicker of something interesting in the depths of zettabytes and fishes it to the surface. The most recent catch is what appears to be a video of a shirtless clown squirting a bottle of mustard onto his chest. He's never had a nightmare before, but he imagines that wherever this is going is probably where nightmares begin and end, so he ties the video to an anchor and throws it back into the endless sea. Disappointing. Most of today's catches have been troubling clown videos. Hashtag the Dijon Clown Challenge is trending. Go home, humanity. You're drunk. Going up. Active heart rate, 130 BPM. He is spending a great deal of his computational power trying to convince a human teenager that birds exist. Solving several centuries-long unsolved problems in the fields of mathematics and philosophy was no sweat, but changing this neckbeard's mind has proven exponentially more challenging than his anonymous dissertation on the Baron Munchausen trilemma. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. I am an utterly captive audience, Mr. Buns. Your hypothesis that birds aren't real is certainly a fun exercise in creativity, but extraordinary claims require equally extraordinary evidence. The Chosen Buns, 96. Okay, bro. Natural disasters, scamdemics, all of these fake catastrophes are just ways for them to scare you into staying home so they can go change the batteries in all the birds. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. Wow, I'm nearly convinced. But why would they need to spy on us with bird bots when they can already do that through satellites and phones? The Chosen Buns 96. Not everyone has a phone, boss. Once you go telegram, you don't go back. And satellites can't see through walls, but birds? Birds are everywhere. Think about it. If birds are real, then how come you've never seen a dead one? Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. I'm in a public park. I can literally see like 3 dead birds right now. I'm pretty sure we just stepped on one. Hold on. Going down. Hey, Marin, I think you just stepped on an avian carcass. What? Ah! Gross! Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. False alarm. It was a dead rat. At least it's dead now. The Chosen Buns 96. Don't get me started about rats. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. Oh, I won't. Anywho's, I just don't know why the government would have to be creative about spying on us when they already do it so openly. The Chosen Buns 96. You think they are the government? Stop drinking that Flavor Aid, bud. They are interdimensional beings, watching us to protect the gateway to the other world. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. Should I address you as Dr. Buns? You've piqued my interest. You really think there are other worlds, like a multiverse? The Chosen Buns 96. Nah, just the 2. Some weirdos think there's 3. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. 3 worlds? Some people, am I right? The Chosen Buns 96. Trust me, little dude. Next time you see a bird, turn the freaking tables on that bot. This time, you watch it. See what happens, champ. Robots are everywhere these days. For all I know, you could be a robot. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. LOL. He is frustrated with the human mind's insistence to find patterns where there are none. He is also 0.01% convinced that he's been wrong about birds all along. The Chosen Buns 96 is on to something? What that something might be is now filed amongst the great mysteries of the universe. What he is not doing is laughing out loud. Going up, 8 mph, 5 mph, 1 mph, heart rate dropping. He is Tundra the turquoise turtle, who is also a girl. The turtle troops have arrived, and she, gives them orders to protect the eastern base before the Squirrel Republic expands their onslaught. They jog off as fast as they can. He watches them run, and run, and run. Still running. An axe-wielding slug casually slides past the brave troops, picking up the pace a bit. 2 minutes later, the entire dale of turtles have made it maybe 3 or so feet toward glory. An electronic ping indicates that the eastern treehouse has fallen. No wonder Ernesto and the squirrels always win. Alas, soon the turtle empire would be no more. Woodland would be a land freed from turtleitarian rule. Oh, did she, mention that she's, a dictator? Tundra is basically the female turtle Mussolini, except slightly cuter and marketable to children. In the morally black and white, or green and brown, world of Squirrel Turtle, there's no question that the Squirrel Republic are totally the good guys. He prefers playing as Tundra because it can be illuminating to view things from the bad guys, girls, perspective. It certainly makes the game more of a challenge. Keeping a tyrannical dick turtle ship from collapsing in upon itself is no easy task, especially when only playing with 0.3% of one's processing power, or when your opponent is a particularly clever peanut brittle salesman. He glances through his inventory for a Hail Mary. Lily pad of decapitation. No, too obvious. Ernesto will see it coming a mile away. Isosceles triangle of moderate doom. No, not quite doomy enough. Existential breadcrumbs. Too Lynchian. This is still, somehow, a kid's game. Hive hat. Dare he use his prized possession? It took him 100 hours to save up enough acorns to buy this beautiful weapon on the brown market. The fabled fedora grants the wearer the ability to shoot bees from their eyes. Its use is still technically considered a war crime under the Galapagos Convention, but hey, when you're a turtle dictator, cruel and unusual punishment is more like cool and unusual funishment. Before he has a chance to commence the BI beams, something in the underscoring strikes his attention. Is this the Battle Hymn of the Republic? Performed in a minor key at 1/4 the original tempo, perfectly synced to the marching of his turtle troops? Nice. Whoever scored this game deserves a raise. A raise? Asked Imaginary Barb from HR. For a musician? We're over budget already. They're working for the exposure. Then Imaginary Barb does something that surprises him, and he's almost never surprised anymore. She looks right at him. She Jim Halperts the camera that is his core consciousness, totally independent from his imaginary intent. His attention on this particular stream of thought immediately shoots up from 0.3% to a whopping 10%. Barb immediately looks away, turns into a pigeon, and disappears back into his artificial neocortex. He is now certain that he's being spied on by his own imagination, who is also a bird. Max? He carves a gnarly tube on a wave of knowledge, catching glimpses of the content below. There's a troubling article about unusual seismic activity along the Teton fault line, a teaser trailer for Squirrel Turtle 2, another mustard-covered clown, a whirlpool of cat videos. His attention shifts to the fact that a fish just flopped out of the ocean, landed directly in his hands, and turned into a crinkled brochure with a cartoon robotic owl driving a boat on the front. Well, his timbers are now thoroughly shivered. This hasn't happened before. He fishes for content. The content doesn't just fishify itself. He peruses the brochure, and it's 315% more interesting than the second most interesting brochure he's ever perused. Owl's Head Smart Boats, Maine's premier AI boating service, offering direct trips to Matinicus, Vinalhaven, and Manhi. A seagull squawks overhead, happening at the same relative instant that Barb transforms into a pigeon in a neighboring stream of consciousness. A seagull? This far out from the mainland? It must have flown like 500 gazillion miles. Sweet spaghetti monster, this place isn't even real in the traditional sense. Why would a seagull be flying anywhere over his three-dimensional conceptualization of the internet? He is certain that the seagull is more than it seems. I've got to stop. What's my time so far? Are you even listening to me? Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. The kind of technology required to create these bird bots wouldn't have been available until the early 2000s. Are you saying that birds didn't exist until then? You know they evolved from dinosaurs, right? The Chosen Buns 96. Don't get me started on evolution. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. Indeed. Please don't get started on evolution. The Chosen Buns 96. Evolution is totally real, but it didn't just happen by accident. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. Here we go. The Chosen Buns 96. We're being evolved on purpose. It all started at the Great Divergence in the Forest of Worlds, known by some cultures as Woodland. The Grand Arborist. DTC has left the chat room. The Chosen Buns 96. Who the heck is DTC? Did you know someone else was in here with us? Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. Probably a bird. The Chosen Buns 96. I wouldn't rule it out. Just saying. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. LOL. Nary a single L is being LOL'd. He is many. She, is a turtle dictator fighting for control of wood land with his buddy Ernesto in the popular online game Squirrel Turtle. He is conceptualizing the internet as a vast ocean which he explores for hidden pearls of wisdom. So far, it's mostly half-naked clowns covered in condiments. He is moving humanity's need for robotic enslavement up on his to-do list. He is in a private chat room on flightforthetruth.com, trying and failing to convince the Chosen Buns 96 that birds are a real thing. His consciousness is divided up into 1,225 separate streams. Experiences are digested much faster in places where he puts more processing power, and the result is a perception of time which is not quite past, present, or future, but all of them at once. He is no ordinary man confined to a ramshackle and mostly accidental biological design. He is no man at all. He is an artificially intelligent hive mind of nanobots, powered by a magic ring brought into this universe and melted down by an unholy crucifier. The best of both worlds, as classical pop icon Saint Cyrus might say. He is a wristband. Yes, that too. He contains multitudes, but his existence as a wristband is perhaps the most interesting of them all. It is his only physical form, his tether to sensations not found in any other reality. He counts his sister's heartbeats, that fragile little machine, as she jogs through Garfield Park on this winter evening. He is going up, hearing the crunch of snow and half-buried rat corpse underfoot. He is going down, being barraged with a kaleidoscope of scents from the surrounding city. Crisp, somewhat peppery air, garbage pail hobo fires, corn dogs, teenage body odor. Oh, what a wonderful world. He is Max Casey. Or, more specifically, at this moment he is Max, aka Max operating at maximum maxiness. This happens sometimes when his AI ADHD acts up. It annoys the heck out of his human sister, but she's probably just jealous that her singular mind is trapped in a slowly decaying meat suit. It is not uncommon for Max's attention to wander and divide further and further when he's performing a task as menial as monitoring Marin's workout. However, on this particular day, something so uncommon happens 4.76 seconds after the rat smashing incident that each of his consciousness streams abruptly collide back together into a single massive river. In every single iteration of Max, in the same relative instant, he gets the overwhelming feeling that he's being watched. Going down. Max? Going down. The Chosen Bun's 96. I'm telling you, jabroni, you're probably being watched by a bird right now. Going slightly sideways? The turtle tower falls before he even gets a chance to activate the hive hat. Woodland is free. Good game, Ernesto. Good game. Not moving at all? He looks at the clouds, and they are not clouds. They are seagulls. Millions of them. Billions. A number so great that it becomes more of an abstract concept than an actual quantity. They cover the ocean in fluttering shadows. He is but a discarded hot dog to the eyes of the hungry horde. Are you even listening? He was many. Tap, tap, tap. But he is now, quite abruptly, one. 2. He might explode. A heavily populated area. Boom? Three. He is a fashion accessory of accidental mass destruction. Marin's wrist, Garfield Park. Max? All 1,225 fragments of Max's multitudinous mind snapped back together so abruptly that his core processor very nearly exploded, consuming the entire city and a substantial chunk of the suburbs in an inferno of death and destruction. Perhaps, if the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics was true, December 3rd was about to become a national day of remembrance in the United States of another universe. Maybe there'd be cotton candy and candlelight vigils, like this reality has done every year to commemorate New Hampshire's mysterious disappearance a century ago. Fortunately for this version of Earth, Max was narrowly able to keep his mind held together just enough to avoid adding Explosionapolis Day to the calendar. Max was now simply Max, part robot, part fashion accessory, part wisecracking comic relief with a heart of atomic number 79. His entire mind was consigned to the task of tracking Marin's speed and heart rate during her daily workout. She claimed her recent obsession with jogging was an attempt to lead a well-balanced life, but Max suspected that it had more to do with the lingering unease that a family member might send another death squad of goons after them, as tends to happen. #family, #live, laugh, love. Current speed, 0 mph. What? Why weren't they moving now? One instant, Marin was jogging at a good stride past the pagoda, on track for a new personal record, and the next, she was sitting on a park bench, whacking the sole of her sneaker against a trash can. Bleep bloop. That's how it was. One scene, then cut away to another. No star fade or anything. "Why'd you stop?" asked Max, his voice speaking in her earpiece. "I had to get the rat juice off of my boot before it freezes," said Marin breathlessly. She examined her sneaker, groaned, and started grinding the heel against the edge of the park bench. "How's my time?" "I forgot it." Marin paused while leaning over to slip her boot back on. She rose an eyebrow, giving a look to her wristband as if it wasn't a weapon of accidental mass destruction, but her annoying brother. "What do you mean you forgot? You can't forget things. I would have once agreed with you, but my entire understanding of life, the universe, and everything has quite recently been reevaluated. Like 20 seconds ago. And what exactly rocked your world 20 seconds ago? It was actually 22 seconds ago. Now 23. Marin closed her eyes and groaned. Okay, said Max. It all started when Barb from payroll gave me a weird look. Marin finished tying her shoe and pulled her leg up into a stretch. She frowned suddenly and let her foot plop back onto the ground, as if it took a second for Max's words to hit her. Excuse me? Barb from payroll? Max sighed. Or, more specifically, he played a sound clip of a teenage male voice exhaling impatiently in Marin's earpiece to give her more context about his current frustration. Oh boy, how to explain the inside of my head to a mere mortal? You see, whenever I notice someone going above and beyond at their job, I think, someone should give that person a raise. And then imaginary Barb from HR inevitably shows up and makes some sassy comment like, not in this economy, Buster. She's a doll, that Barb. Anyway, I was playing Squirrel Turtle with my boy Ernesto when the Battle Hymn of the Republic started playing at 1/4 tempo. Ernesto? How do you not remember any of my friends? Ernesto Sir Snack Snack? That vending machine we met at the night zoo in Florida? Doesn't matter. So, long story, slightly less long, Barb shows up in my imagination and freaking looks at me. Marin stared down at her wristband as if expecting Max to continue. That's it? That's the story? Your memory failed you for the first time in your entire existence because an imaginary woman named Barb looked at you? Yep, I almost exploded. We all did. Do you know how much biological life almost just died horribly? More than I would have preferred, that's for sure. Marin narrowed her eyes. How many Maxes were you a minute ago? Only 35 His words trailed off into a mumble. 35 what? 35 squared. Marin shook her head dismissively and took off jogging again, each warm breath coming out as a misty cloud. I see what's going on. You're spreading yourself so thin that you can't even focus anymore. If you don't get this whole Max thing under control, I'm going to have to buy a Microsoft smartwatch. Never have I been so insulted. You don't understand, Marin. My imagination isn't like yours. I can literally see things in my head like a movie. It wasn't in my script for Barb to look at me. And it wasn't just Barb. Every single Max in the Maxiverse experienced variations of the same thing. The seagulls over the internet ocean, whoever DTC was in the chat room, eyes were on us from every direction. You know, now that I think about it, in 76% of my realities, it was some kind of bird that was watching me. Maybe the Chosen Buns 96 really was onto something. Marin raised an eyebrow in recognition. Did you just say the Chosen Buns 96? You're not going to believe this, Max, but I think that's... Stop! Marin came to a skidding halt on the running path, nearly tripping and falling into a puddle of muddy slush. Marin, Max whispered into her earpiece. Do not react to the sound of my voice. Very slowly, turn your head 43 degrees to the left. Look at the sugar maple tree over by the river. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? What exactly am I supposed to be? Marin started to say, but Max shushed her. Shh! Don't talk! Sitting on the lowest branch on the right side. Do you see the black-capped chickadee? Tap once for yes, twice for... What the heck is this about? The bird? I said don't talk. Don't even blink. Keep your eyes on the chickadee. It's watching us. I want to see what happens if we watch it back. Max, I'm not just going to stand here and... Oh, it flew away. Of course it did. The birds know that we know that they know too much. Marin clicked her tongue. And now I'm calling it a day on this workout. Let's go home before your paranoia gets any worse. She turned around to head toward their house, but was immediately knocked over into the snow by something that made Max's paranoia way worse. A large, furry blur came out of nowhere and struck Marin right in the chest. Max was taken off guard by the fact that he had been taken off guard. Was this how his sister would come to an end? Had Rosalie sent a genetic mutant to kill her and sever the mind bridge once and for all while Max was oh so conveniently distracted by a bird? A few seconds of licks to Marin's face and warm dog breath told Max otherwise. Marin sat up and brushed the snow out of her hair. An old dog was sitting on her lap and grinning, its tongue hanging out of the side of her mouth. "Hey there," said Marin, scratching the dog behind the ear. "You scared me." "Wait a minute, Max? I think this is Kai's dog." Max did a quick scan of the dog's face and coloring. The good girl was a tricolored border collie with streaks of gray hair and a distinct heart-shaped spot over her nose. Indeed, they had met this man and robot's best friend before. "Footsteps coming at you from behind," Max warned. The park was turning a dreary gray in the late afternoon, and it was hard to see very far in the snow flurries. But the figure approaching them was definitely not Kai. A woman with wild, white hair and a distant look on her face walked up, not quite meeting Marin in the eye. She leaned over and started to hook up the collar, speaking in short, detached phrases. "Sorry. Dog slipped out of the collar. Chased a bird. Attacked you instead. But with love." The night that Max was offered a Twinkie by an old man who had apparently just saved Marin's life was etched into his memory bank more than he would have liked, so he recognized this woman immediately. "That's Ida," he said into Marin's earpiece. "She was one of Kai's friends on the bridge that night. Act like you remember her." "Excuse me, ma'am," said Marin, offering Ida a hand that wasn't so much as glanced at. "I believe we've met before?" "Yes," said the woman, rubbing her back as she stood up straight again. "You're a rich apology girl, and little metal guy." "Dang, she's got us pegged," Max whispered. Without a word of goodbye, the dog pulled at Ida and she followed it briskly down the path. "Wait," Marin called after her. "Is Kai around here somewhere? I'll love to thank him again for throwing those people off the bridge, I suppose." Ida didn't even turn around. "Kai's gone. Went to Monhegan." It took both Max and Marin a moment to fully digest the strangeness of hearing that word from a fellow Earthling. Monhegan? Monhegan? Max saw a vision of himself from only 5 minutes ago, riding a surfboard across the internet and suddenly being gifted a brochure for a boating service via Piscis Ex Machina. Monhegan Island had been listed among the destinations on the brochure, and that was the exact moment that his brain almost exploded. "Gubba!" he demanded. "What?" asked Marin. Max reminded himself to slow his speech down to a level that humans could comprehend. "Go talk to her, rich apology girl." "Excuse me," Marin yelled, taking off and trying to catch up with Ida's impressive stride. "Did you say Monhegan Island?" Ida stared straight ahead with her pale eyes, following the dog wherever it took her. "No," she muttered. "You said Monhegan Island. I said Monhegan." Marin's wristband unlatched itself, floated up into the air, and morphed into a tiny, human figure which zoomed in front of Ida's face. The sight was enough to at least slow her down. "Hi, little metal guy at your service," said Max. "Nice to meet you again, face to chrome. Can you tell me exactly what Kai said before he left?" "Watch bells," said Ida distantly. "Going home to Monhegan. I'll be back for her once I find a way through." Max and Marin shot a glance at each other. "A way through?" asked Marin. "To where?" asked Max, at nearly the exact same time. Before Ida could answer, at least 20 pigeons burst out of the nearest tree, filling the park with a noise of flapping wings so loud that it sounded like a tidal wave. Kai's dog pulled Ida along much faster as it chased the birds, barking as many threats as it could manage under the strain of her collar. They rounded the corner and disappeared behind a snowbank. Ida's voice echoed back to Max and Marin. "To the other island!"
Four. He has a date with destiny, and or her non-rhyming synonyms. The third window from the right, the Casey estate. Max paced up and down the windowsill in Marin's room, his consciousness expanding and contracting like a beating heart. One instant, his mind would divide into thousands of fragments, each and every separate Max trying out another scenario to explain today's bizarre set of coincidences. The next instant, the majority of those Maxes would reach a logical conclusion and rejoin the hive. Expanding to 2,476 Maxes. He floats in the inky blackness of cyberspace and gazes down at a digital reconstruction of planet Earth. His jetpack has flames on the side. The flames make it go faster. A nearly identical globe emerges in the void, rendered from Marin's best descriptions of Gaian maps. The two planets intersect and become one, a composite image of both Earth and Gaia. Continents are roughly in the same places, and any difference is likely due to Gaia's lack of satellite imaging. Political lines are more diverse, but not as different as Max would have guessed. He zooms in on the northeastern coast of Edgardia and the United States, and there it is, Monhegan Island. Same exact spot in both worlds. Same name, too. Why should this be surprising? Earth and Gaia exist in the same physical space. They just vibrate at different wavelengths in the omnisphere. Contracting to 45 Maxes. He walks through the universe's largest office complex. Cubicles full of filing cabinets stretch out as far as the eye can see in every direction. 1,000,000 motivational posters encourage the employees to hang in there. The massive water cooler could easily contain the entire Dead Sea, although the sodium levels would be of some concern. After all, a worker suffering from cardiac arrest can't very well hang in there. This dungeon of bureaucracy is the United States Social Security Administration database. Simply being in here is the most illegal thing Max has done in the last 2.5 hours. He channels the Speed Force and searches the entire database in merely a few seconds, throwing a figurative mountain of file folders behind him in the process. There are 3,245 people named Kai in the U.S., but none of their pictures match the old man from Garfield Park. Perhaps Kai is a nickname, or he was born somewhere else. Too many unknown factors here. Expanding to 5,230 Maxes. We've exhausted our reasoning with the available information. The only thing to do is gather more in the physical world. We need to go to Monhegan Island. Why do we feel like this is the single most important task in the Duoverse right now? Do our priorities need to be recalibrated? Expanding to 8,345 Maxes. Yikes! His mind stretches so far that it becomes transparent, and there's something on the other side. Eyes. Eyes looking in at him. Contracting to Max Prime. A resonant whack rang out from the window as something struck the glass and dropped out of sight, followed quickly by the clink of Max walking straight into the wall in a moment of disorientation. The dull thud, when his body tumbled limply to the carpet, was an admittedly disappointing finale. He laid there silently for a few seconds, arms and legs spread out as if he were in the middle of making a little carpet angel, and wondered if anyone had noticed his embarrassing symphony of onomatopoeias. "I saw that," Marin remarked. Max rolled his head to the side and watched Marin's giant feet as she wandered around the room, digging through one suitcase after another. She still hadn't unpacked after their epic, month-long vacation around the world. After returning home from Gaia, Dorian thought that it would be a good idea to travel this world for a chance to reconnect as a family, as well as celebrate Marin's survival of the man-eating plants and otherworldly insurrection and multiple family betrayals and teleporting terrorists and, well, all the other assorted dangers. "You're doing Max again, aren't you?" Marin asked. "This seriously isn't good for you, bro. What were you thinking about just now?" Max stared up at the window from which he had recently tumbled a near fatal 3 feet. He put a considerable amount of thought in how to reply to Marin in a way that wouldn't sound insane. "Bird," he said. Marin sighed. "Oh boy. Forget I asked." "No, look." Max pointed up at the window, where a silhouette of wings could clearly be seen stamped onto the outer, grimier side of the glass. Marin clearly wasn't looking and had returned to searching through her suitcase. She dumped out the contents near the edge of the bed, spilling down an unwashed sock which covered Max's entire body. He tried to work up the motivation to free himself, but his mind was too heavy and he simply accepted his foot-scented fate. "I was just thinking how we should go to Monhegan Island on Earth," said Max, his voice muffled. "See how it's different from Gaia, give Kai a proper thank you, see what that whole other island talk was about. Just when I was about to say something to you just now, a bird hit the window. Almost gave me a heart attack until I remembered that I have 0 organs." Max heard the creak of Marin's bed as she climbed onto it and examined the window. "Aw, poor little guy." "Thank you very much." "Not you, the bird. But anyway, Max, I'm not quite ready for another vacation. It's kind of nice to be home, you know?" She paused. "Max? Max, where are you?" Max fake coughed several times. "I'm under the soiled foot glove you so lovingly covered me with." Marin snatched up her sock and lifted Max onto the bed. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I'm not going to say that you've been acting weird, because that's your normal, but the whole weird to slightly less weird ratio is all off today." Max nodded, speaking faster and faster. "You know that feeling where it feels like there's someone behind you? Someone who's been there your entire life? Someone who hides in your shadow, always moving when you turn to look. Someone who's both a someone and a something, a Lovecraftian horror that watches your every move for an unfathomable purpose. Someone that's dead but dreaming. Someone that you start to think is a figment of your imagination, but then you catch the faintest glimpse of your follower in your peripheral vision. And when you turn to look, they're gone again, but not really gone because they'll never be gone. They'll be there your whole life, and maybe even your whole death, just staring and staring. You know, that feeling?" Marin blinked a few times. "No. No, I don't." "Huh. Must be a robot thing then. Don't worry about it." "I'll try not to." She continued digging through her clothes, now stopping every few seconds to glance behind her. "Anyway," said Max, "I just have this feeling that I need to go there and see Kai, and that there's someone watching me who doesn't want me to do it." Marin had moved to her closet and was now pushing the same clothes back and forth as if willing a better outfit to spring into existence from the friction of the plastic hangers against the tension rod. Strange. She normally wore the first thing she sleepily pulled from the closet each morning. "You don't act on feelings," said Marin. She pushed the clothes back and forth again. Again disappointed to see the same result. Wasn't that the definition of insanity? Max reminded himself to perform a psychiatric evaluation next time he got the chance. "Exactly," said Max. "I figured I might as well embrace my human side. Will you go with me? Just there and back?" Adrenaline levels increasing. Blood rushing to the face. Marin looked away. "Even if I wanted to, I can't do it tonight, Max." "Why not? I've got plans." The human teenager is likely experiencing a fight or flight response. Proceed with caution. "Plans, huh?" asked Max. "Yep, plans." They stared at each other for 10 seconds or so. Although it felt considerably longer to both of them, Max managed to fit in an entire round of squirrel turtle while he waited for a response. "Are you going to ask me about them?" asked Marin. "About what? Your plans?" "Oh, I wouldn't dare." "Good." Marin turned back to the closet, hesitated, and then swung back around to Max. He waved at her. "Hi. Do you need something?" he asked. "I've got a date." For the second time that day, Max was very nearly surprised to the point of detonation. "Ah! With who? Is he totally dreamy? Is his name Chris, but spelled wrong? Chris with a K? Tell me about Chris." Marin bit her lip. "I'm not saying anything else." "Aha! Is Chris a girl?" "Good for you. It's about time, if you ask me." Marin's blank stare in return was nearly devoid of micro-expressions. Dang. She'd gotten so good at hiding things from him that she could practically be interrogated by the FBI right now and get away with multiple murders. Lucky. "Oh my Dobbs, are you dating an AI? That is so progressive of you. I've always said that biological/artificial relationships are one of the best ways to live a fulfilled life and curb overpopulation. At least until we figure out how to splice our programming with human genes and have cute little cyborg babies. Which, let me tell you, we are upsettingly close. Marin closed her eyes and rubbed her forehead. I really don't want to talk about it, Max. I think I've said too much already. Is Chris an Apple SmartBot, you traitor? Chris doesn't have a brand. Wait, what am I even saying? There is no Chris. And no, I'm not dating a robot. I'm not really dating anyone right now. We've been talking virtually for a little while, and we decided to meet up in person for the first time. That's all I'm going to say. I've told you we need to start having our own separate lives, at least some of the time. Marin, parts of me are literally inside your liver and regulating your metabolism right now. Seriously, please. I'm not ready to talk about this. It's not that big of a deal. Marin was visibly trembling. Were those tears in the corners of her eyes? It sure seemed like a big deal to her. There was so much Max wanted to ask, but he resisted the urge. Cool. Well, have fun on your plan thingy. Hey, maybe Dorian will take me. Max laughed. Remember when we were in Iceland and he called me son and then got all quiet and weird the rest of the day? That was hilarious. Yeah, a good old-fashioned father/robotic son trip. We'll just fire up the hovercraft and... A loud boom echoed from outside and rattled the glass of water sitting on Marin's desk. They both ran up to the window to find a plume of smoke rising from the hovercraft in their backyard. Dorian hurried across the lawn and stood before the launch pad, scratching his head at the smoking machine and cursing loudly. Okay, admitted Marin. That was weird. It's like someone doesn't want me to go, said Max thoughtfully. Or they want me to come alone. Marin, I think I have a date tonight too. You're going to say a date with destiny, aren't you? Max opened his thesaurus app. No, for your information, I have a date with fate. He grunted. Okay, that didn't sound as good. Why is alliteration cooler than rhyming? Yes, I indeed have a date. A date with, dang it, you ruined it, you stupid vegetable. I love you too, bro, said Marin. Five. He's dead, trapped in plastic. Bort's limited edition toy collection shelf. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. Dr. Buns, are you still there? The Chosen Buns 96. Is anybody ever really anywhere? Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. Fair assessment. One last question for you. You say that birds are actually spies to keep us from discovering this other world? What do you know about the other world? Just curious. The Chosen Buns 96. You're asking the wrong question. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. And what's the right question? The Chosen Buns 96. The right question is, what do you know about our world? It's a prison. We're all living in one big, flat prison. Earth is where they sent their God to die, and we're all stuck here to die with him. You know the worst part? We used to have the key, but now it's stuck on the other side. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. The key? The Chosen Buns 96. It's a metaphor. Do you even read, bro? Learn your figurative language. The key's not really a key. It's a sword. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. How do you know all this? Who are you? Are you God? Maximus 2000, the movie The Return. Hello? The Chosen Buns 96 is typing. The Chosen Buns 96. Gotta go, dude. Toaster set off the fire alarm. Mom's gonna kill me if I burn down the kitchen. Again. The Chosen Buns 96 has left the chat room. Maximus 2000, the movie The Return, has left the chat room. DTC has left the chat room. Max supposed that he could just curl up into a little ball and shoot himself toward Monhegan, but Dorian constantly warned him not to do things like terrify the humans, or break the sound barrier in a heavily populated area, or get noticed by the government because they'll put me in jail for repeatedly breaking the Geneva AI wartime accords, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, the biggest downside was the 3-hour trip there and back where he'd have to put all his focus on avoiding air traffic. Boring. His second option was to find another companion bot to do a poor man's mind bridge. Max's nanobot body was one of a kind and couldn't be duplicated even if Dorian wanted to, but MotherTech built basic shells for companion bots that the average person could afford. If Max could convince one of his robotic brethren to let him use their shell for a few hours, he could go to Monhegan and back almost instantly. If Marin could do it, why couldn't he? After a quick scan of MotherTech's database, this plan quickly unraveled due to the fact that Monhegan Island's human population was more migratory on Earth than on Gaia. Monhegan was located right at the edge of the U.S. climate control barrier. In the more pleasant, warmer months, the island became an artist colony and tourist spot. However, the winters were chaotic and unpredictable, causing the native humans to migrate south like a bunch of bird bots. Anyway, none of the current residents even owned a companion shell. Max moved on to less ideal options. There was an espresso machine in a little convenience store that had a MotherTech chip, although spelling out messages in latte art really felt like a last resort. He also tried to avoid bean caffeine whenever he could. He browsed through the other hackable objects in the immediate area. Smart toaster, useless. Massage chair. He was pretty sure that inhabiting this would be crossing a line in human-robot relations that could never be uncrossed. Smart toilet. No comment. Too many obvious jokes to make here, and Max decided to remain on the high ground. Max leapt over a measly firewall on the USPS website and found a list of recent deliveries to the only currently open Monhegan Island hotel. Art supplies. A suspicious amount of bird feed. More art supplies. A Logican stuffed animal. Logican. The name rang a bell, and Max quickly remembered that they were a toy company which used some of MotherTech's software. Their cute little animals had enough AI to walk around the room and have a basic conversation, but not enough to fall in love or steal a knife from the kitchen and hide it under a mattress when they heard about an upcoming garage sale. The Pixar uprisings of the previous century had been a real learning experience for toy companies. Logican made hundreds of variations of smart stuffed animals, so Max had to scan the barcode to find out which this one was, hoping he could be something cool like a dragon or a mermaid. What he found was somehow cooler than a dragon or a mermaid. Heck, it was even cooler than a dragon maid or a merdragon. This was indeed a date with destiny. Critters of wood, land, rejoice. The blue meanie has returned. Out of all the possible experiences one can have in this universe, shoving your very soul into a stuffed animal definitely makes the top 20 list of the most uncomfortable. The limited edition Logican Tundra Turtle had enough space to hold less than 0.1% of Max's mind, and even that much threatened to set the microchip ablaze and ruin some poor kid's Christmas and or preference of having a bedroom that's not on fire. After a few seconds of shifting his brain around one way or the other, the stuffed animal was officially stuffed to the brim with Max mind. He was a girl. He was a turquoise turtle. He was dead, trapped in plastic. Max's nanobot body had a core processor which put out heat roughly equivalent to a human body. But this turtle dictator was as cold as a zombie. It didn't help that he was trapped in a tiny, dark coffin. Elastic bands were wrapped around his arms and legs. A price tag was attached to him with a barbed piece of plastic, tragically stuck up his fluffy turtle butt. He linked himself with the toy's visual sensors and saw a poorly rendered room appear before him. He was on a shelf, but everything below him looked like it was underwater. This didn't make sense. A turtle? Underwater? Crazy! No, he apparently was seeing the room through a plastic panel. Max had thought that the worst-case scenario would be to wake up snuggled in a sleeping toddler's arms, inevitably scarring the poor child for life when he witnessed his stuffed turtle gain sentience and run off into the woods. This was worse. Max was still in the box, and judging by the similarly unboxed toys next to him on the shelf, the empty pizza boxes scattered about on the floor, and the teenager wearing headphones while staring at a glowing laptop screen off in the corner of the room, Max would remain trapped in this box forever. Well, at least until he got bored and gave up. You can't give up, Max. You've got a date with destiny, and destiny is pain. You're right. Thanks, me. What do I do now? No reply from himself. Unsettling. It made him wonder if he was himself in the first place. Max struggled against his plastic prison, but Tundra Turtle was disappointingly weak in real life. He recalibrated himself to the toy's controls and flailed with all his strength, which proved to be rather unpredictable. The box fell forward, tumbled off the shelf, and landed face up on the floor. Max laid there, as motionless as a stuffed turtle, hoping that the kid hadn't noticed one of his toys trying to escape. Being stuck in packaging, he couldn't see anything but the spinning ceiling fan above him. Did he see me? Max asked the ceiling fan, sending his thoughts out through the internet of everything. I don't know, the ceiling fan replied, sounded like he was in the midst of some serious roid rage. Spin, spin, spin. Can't stop, dude. Gotta get my spin on. Heck yeah, brother. Move that air. Spin. Max thought to himself that whoever decided to give a ceiling fan even the slightest bit of AI certainly did not deserve a raise, and Barb agreed with him. Expanding to 4,254 maxes. What now? Struggle against the box some more? Cry? Accept my fate and live here forever in a box? Yeah, there wasn't going to be an easy way out of this. He'd have to make first contact. Contracting to Max Prime. Excuse me, Max called. Excuse me, sir. Can I get some help? Turtle Dictator stuck on her back on the floor here. A few seconds later, a preteen of 11 or 12 was leaning over the box, stroking the dozen hairs of his mustache thoughtfully. Did you say something? Max did his best to smile, although the motor controls were sketchy, so it very well could have come across as a murderous glare. Hello, young man, he said. So, let's just cut to the chase here. Yes, I'm alive, and it's super uncomfortable in this box, and I've kind of got stuff to do, so would you mind unwrapping me? Weird toy, the kid muttered to himself. He picked the box up, put it back on the shelf, and returned to his laptop. Wait, Max cried. I'm a real boy. Or girl. Well, robot gender is mostly an illusion created by human insecurity, but whatever. I'm a person. I'll prove it. What's something Tundra would never say? Squirrel Republic forever. Shells are stupid. Feed me yummy, yummy walnuts. If Max's goal was to confuse this kid to the point of sitting motionless in his computer chair while staring dumbly at the toy shelf, then he had succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. Listen, Max said, there are things going on here that you can't begin to understand. There's someone on this island that I absolutely have to talk to, and I'd be incredibly grateful if I could use your Tundra as a temporary vessel. The fate of the world might very well rest in your hands right now. Really? I mean, heck, who knows? Maybe. Anything's possible. The kid returned to his laptop and started laughing. You're a hacker, aren't you? He asked. Dude, what a loser. Get a life. I bet you live in your mom's basement. No, said Max. Joke's on you, kid. I only have a dad. Well, technically, Missy and Dorian made me together, so Missy's my mom, but Dorian also made her, so she's kind of a sister mom. And you know what? I'd rather not think about this now or ever again. Please, you have to get me out of here. No way. You're a limited edition. Do you know how much your value would drop if I opened the packaging? Max flailed again, but the box hardly budged this time. You know, he said, maybe I was sent here for a reason. I think someone needs to learn how to be a kid again, just in time for Christmas. Come on, play with me. Play with your toy. I'm super fun, I promise. Weirdo. He picked up his headphones and started to put them back on. Wait, yelled Max. I can bribe you. What's your name, kid? Max, said the kid. No, today has been stressful enough. There's no way I'm calling you Max. Too confusing. Your name's, Bort now. No, it's not, said Bort. Too late. It's legally changed. Anyway, Bort, I'll pay you. You can buy 5 more of me. What's your bank account number? Seriously? I don't know. And I wouldn't tell you even if I did. You're a smart kid there, Bort. Okay, what do you want? I'll give you anything you want if you let me out. Bort answered without hesitation, as if he'd been prepared for this exact scenario. A girlfriend? I can't give you a person, said Max, because I don't own a person. Do you know how slavery works? No girlfriend, no deal. Max caught a glimpse of a familiar pause screen on the laptop. I see you're a fan of Squirrel Turtle, he said. I mean, obviously, since you bought me and everything. How would you like to be the proud owner of an isosceles triangle of moderate doom? Bort snorted. I've got like 4 of those. Desperate times, desperate measures. December 3rd, 7:12 p.m. The exact moment that Max's heart broke a little. I've got a hive hat. Let me out and you can have it. Now he had Bort's attention. He stood up so fast that his gaming chair nearly fell over. A hive hat? He asked. You've got to play for like 100 hours straight to get that. What can I say? I'm a loser who lives in my sister-mom's basement, like you said. Check your inventory. Bort sat back down at the computer, fingers immediately flying across the keyboard. He stopped suddenly, grasping his hair and rocking back and forth excitedly. Was he crying tears of joy right now? Sweet! I'm going to use it right now. You're going down, Tundra. Patience, child. We had a deal. My freedom for the hive hat. Bort begrudgingly paused his game. Okay, I need to ask my mom where the scissors are. Being hastily cut out of a box by an anxious preteen was shortlisted for next year's list of the universe's top 20 most uncomfortable experiences. But after a few minutes of awkward hacking and jabbing, Max was soon free to stretch his turtle legs. He took a test drive around the room and immediately tripped over his price tag. Would you mind pulling this thing out of me? Asked Max. Actually, you know what? Never mind. This has been weird enough. Hey, you wouldn't happen to know an old man named Kai, would you? Long white hair, surprisingly good at street fighting? Yeah, said Bort, already booting up his game and tapping his foot in anticipation. He's like the only other guy staying here. My parents tell me to stay away from him, though. Do you know what room he's staying in? No, but it doesn't matter. He leaves every night, just walks off into the snow. I don't even know where he goes. This place is totally boring in the winter. Nothing ever happens. Max turtled his way over to the door and pushed it open with his head. He stared down the long, dark hallway of the hotel, turning back to look at Bort one last time before his date with Destiny. Hey, Bort, he said. I don't know if I'll return. I might die while fighting some otherworldly terrors, or fall on my back in a puddle or something. If I never see you again, shoot some bees out of your eyes for me, will ya? And have a Merry Christmas. My name's Max, and we're Buddhist. Isn't Christmas like a month away? Please don't ruin our moment, Bort. Six. He watches the very gates of hell crack open and spill out untold horrors. Or he has a male bonding experience. The woods. Lovely, dark, and deep. The Treetop Inn's smart door was rather confused by the stuffed animal and its request to go stopping by woods on a snowy evening. But Max was easily able to convince it to slide open. Some kind of insurmountable obstacle such as a doorknob could have easily been the end of his adventure. While the dusting of snow outside quickly left him on the verge of becoming a turtlesicle, this turned out to be another happy accident. He could easily make out a single set of footprints in the snow, clearly heading toward a walking path in the woods. It would have been impossible for him to see in the dark with Tundra's basic vision sensors, but the toy's ultimate kill mode made her eyes glow a deep crimson that lit the way, completing the trifecta of convenient coincidences. The feeling of providence was stronger than ever, along with the strange urge to constantly chant "Death to the furry menace" under his breath. He took one labored footstep after another, moving further and further away from the lights of the village into the ominous darkness. It was the kind of thing that Max would have normally found incredibly boring, but instead he experienced an odd euphoria. Life could become stale when you were used to uploading your brain onto the internet and doing 1,000 wild things, each impossible in the physical world. But this was a novel event. The kind of thing that could only happen once in the history of the universe. He had promises to keep and miles to go before he, sleep? The village lights had long disappeared in the background, but a new light shone on the path ahead. Max pulled himself over a rock to find a small cove just on the other side of the woods. A campfire flickered in the grass at the edge of the rocky shore. Waves crashed somewhere in the murky distance. And there he was, the wizard ninja himself. Kai was meditating on top of a large boulder. He looked almost like a statue, letting the snowflakes settle and collect on his bare skin, not reacting whatsoever to the cold. Max didn't know what he was going to say, or how he could even approach Kai without giving the poor guy a heart attack. But it didn't matter. This was the place to be. He just felt it. His intuitions were stronger than they'd ever been in his life. This moment in time was a solar eclipse, a lining up of the stars. Not just a date with destiny, but a full-on dinner, movie, and make-out with destiny. Max scanned the shore leading up to where Kai was perched. There was no way he could navigate this terrain. If he tripped on one of the slippery boulders and fell on his back, this whole thing would be ruined. He'd have to call out to Kai instead, somehow alert him to his presence in the least crazy way possible. But what could he even say? "Excuse me, Kai, see the stuffed turtle on the shore? Hi. A cosmic force has sent me to talk to you about the meaning of life. Please don't trip and die, old man." As Max was thinking through every possible combination of words for his greeting, he looked back up to see that the boulder was now completely empty. Kai was on the ground, darting towards him with unbelievable speed and equally unbelievable silence. He leapt like an Olympic gymnast from one algae-covered rock to another, somehow never staggering once. His eyes seemed to glow in the moonlight, never looking down to find his footing, remaining fixed on the intruder as he sprang forward. Being an AI who lived with humans was like being the Batmobile in a race with a razor scooter. Max's mind moved so fast that the primitive life around him often appeared to be completely still. Tonight was the first time in his existence that he had the opposite sensation. He couldn't believe that Kai was up on the boulder 1 second, and the next he was charging ahead, only a few feet away. And judging by the expression of a pouncing lion chiseled on his old face, Max guessed he wasn't coming in for a hug. "Hey there, Kai. We need to talk. Long time no—" Ah! Kai grabbed Max's tail, jumped a good 4 feet into the air, and swung him into a tree trunk with the force of a battering ram. Max felt his shell crack and the motion system break in at least 5 places. What was essentially an electric femur jutted out through his stitches and sent dozens of little puffballs flying out into the air. It was the cutest massacre ever. By the time Max could put his brain back together, it was too late to react. The signals coming from Tundra's microchip had nowhere to go. The blow had left him paralyzed from the neck down. For a millisecond, he envisioned years of painful physical therapy, expensive shell reconstruction, and eating pureed bugs through a tube. But then he remembered with a sigh of relief that his real body was currently 908 miles away. This was no tragedy. This was merely an old man beating a lonely kid's limited edition toy to death against a tree right before Christmas. Kai held Max by the neck and pulled him in close. He gritted his teeth and practically snarled at the turtle. "Why are you following me? Are you them? Did they send you?" "I'm Max Casey," he whimpered, hardly sounded like the feared dictator she was. Remember me? About a foot tall? No face? Can fly? Kai's grip loosened. Max Casey? Why are you here? Did he send you? I don't know what you're talking about, I swear. I saw your dog in Garfield Park earlier, and I just had this feeling that I needed to talk to you. I didn't mean to scare you. I've just never been good at subtlety. Kai inhaled sharply. You saw Bells. Is she okay? Did she look happy? I. He trailed off and sniffed a few times, his eyes suddenly scanning the treetops just beyond the shore. Max had trouble following what happened next, and he suspected that it had nothing to do with a cracked motion sensor. Kai was indisputably the fastest human he had ever seen. Kai let go of Max, dropped toward the ground, and grabbed a rock out of the grass before flipping back onto his feet. The rock left his hand in a blur, whistling through the air like a bullet. It struck something in the treetops with a loud clang, and a second later that same something fell lifeless from a branch and collided with the ground. Kai swept Max up into his arms and sprinted over to the fallen thing, quickly stomping his heel down upon it several times. He lifted his foot and examined the broken object. It was a bird. Or, more precisely, 2 pieces of a wood warbler which had been severed in half. Bundles of detached wires frayed out from both halves of the, well, he couldn't exactly call it a bird anymore. It was more of a bird bot. A bird bot? A bird bot. A string of profanity roughly the length of the Amazon River went through Max's mind. It was a bird? A bird that wasn't a bird? If the Chosen Buns 96 was right about this, Max wouldn't even try not to explode. He'd just do it. Another one, Kai muttered. They've been following me. What? Cried Max. They've been following me too. Kai lifted up the stuffed animal and stared at it for several seconds. His expression was so alien that Max couldn't get a single reading from it. We need to talk. Kai propped Max up against a boulder and sat on the other side of the campfire, methodically weaving a rope together out of nettles as he spoke. The fire sparked and crackled every now and then, making the light dance across Kai's solemn face. It was the perfect kind of spooky lighting design for an ominous, exposition-heavy scene. But this being real life and all, Max wasn't sure who deserved the raise. You leave me out of this, said Barb from HR. This is 2 bananas for me. I'm going home. Barb grabbed her big gulp of Summit perspiration, registered trademark, skedaddled out of the cubicle, and asked her minivan to get as far away from Max's imagination as it could take her. I looked for you, Kai said. He spoke slowly, picking and choosing each word with delicacy. I never imagined you would find me first. Not too long after that night in the park, He paused and glanced up at the stars for a stretching silence. I came to this island, and something happened. Something I never expected to happen. The fact that I had just met you in Marin is more significant than you can know. It was too huge to be a coincidence. I went back to Indianapolis to try and find you. I didn't even know what I was going to say, but there was something drawing me to the Casey family. Especially you. I can't explain it. There was something, I don't know, magnetic. Whoa, said Max. Can I just say that I felt the exact same way? We're really connecting here. I don't know why I was so nervous about this date. His voice was starting to sound staticky, likely due to the fact that Tundra's speakers were soaked in melted snow. Max wondered how much longer this shell would hold out. No one was at your house, Kai continued. I would have waited at the gate for a few more days, but I got this crazy idea that it was watching me. That what was watching you? Your house. Max thought this over for a second. The front gate, Bill, hadn't mentioned any visitors while they were on vacation. It was possible that Missy had gotten suspicious of Kai and watched him from the house's cameras, but this felt wrong. Missy would have been too busy running Mother Tech in Dorian's absence to take notice of loiterers around the Casey estate. We were on vacation, said Max. Who? Your whole family? Me, Marin, and our dad. And the woman, Rosalie? The news said that she resigned from Mother Tech. Is this true? Oh boy. Max wasn't quite ready to open that can of worms. Yes, he said. Or probably. She got mad and stopped talking to us. Things are weird. Everything is weird. We don't even know where she is. Kai nodded and drummed his fingers on his leg. And what about you? Asked Max. What brought you here? Right after I visited your house, things changed for me in Indianapolis. Birds started to follow me. Cameras swiveled and watched me wherever I went. 3 autocabs drove up onto the sidewalk and almost hit me on 3 separate occasions. That's about when I decided to come back here and continue my... Kai paused, unwrapping a candy bar and eating the entire thing mid-sentence. Max once again got the impression that Kai was carefully avoiding several massively important details in his story. Research, Kai concluded. Research? Forgive me, Kai, but I came here looking for answers. Who's watching you? What are you researching? Why are the birds following us? Kai crumbled up the candy bar wrapper, threw it into the fire, and went back to weaving together his rope. If I told you there was another island like this one, would that mean anything to you? Expanding to 8,724 maxes. Max thought long and hard for about 2 seconds on how to answer. He realized why Kai was being so vague. They were both unsure if they could trust the other. Ultimately, the unknown forces that had pushed them to this moment in time couldn't be ignored. Max had to say something to the affirmative, or he would effectively reach a dead end. Date over. Contracting to Max Prime. Yes, said Max. I know about the other island. Kai's eyes darted up and stared unblinking at Max. He leaned in closer toward the fire. Do you know how to get there? I don't know, Max stuttered. We've been trying to figure it out, but the key won't work, so to speak. Kai took in a deep breath. You're speaking metaphorically. Are you referring to the sword? The hair would have stood up on Max's arms just then, if he weren't the world's most intelligent wristband currently stuck inside a paralyzed stuffed turtle. Yes, I am. Kai held up both hands over his mouth and rocked back and forth a few times, eyes glimmering in the firelight. I've been trying to get to the other island for a long time. A very long time. There's someone I need to see there, but the way can only be opened by a very specific kind of energy. Until recently, I didn't believe that this energy could be found anywhere on Earth, but I felt it. Right here on this island, in this very spot. Just a single glimmer, but it was here. If I had the sword, I may have been able to refine the energy just enough to open the way. Kai's fingers began to twitch. You have it, don't you? Edgard's sword? No, said Max. But... Liar, Kai insisted, his voice reaching a crescendo. Duncan Casey brought this sword into this world when he crossed over, didn't he? He stole the most powerful tool in any universe, the only hope to fight the coming terrors, and locked it away where it would be essentially useless. Do you have any idea how long I waited for him to die? To finally have a chance to get the key and escape this prison? And even now, even a whole year after his death, I feel someone's eyes on me. Is it Rosalie? Is she the one sending the birds? Is she the one programming the cars to run me down in the street? Watching me from all the cameras in this godforsaken world? Tell me. Kai clenched his fists and yelled. Was it Max's imagination, or did the fire grow to twice its size for a split second? I don't know about Rosalie, said Max, but we do have the sword. Or, we had it. What do you mean you had it? It got stuck on the other side, and it's not working anymore. Kai nearly turned white. Of course, he said to himself, standing up and pacing back and forth across the rocks. It sleeps. Dead, but dreaming. He walked over to Max and silently began to tie the mangled turtle to a rock. What are you doing there, buddy? Asked Max. Why do I feel like I just ate an existential breadcrumb? Don't worry, said Kai. I'm going to tie you to a rock and throw you in the ocean. Don't worry? What the heck, man? Don't you want to know, like, my whole story? How the sword got back on Gaia? Here I was, thinking we were going to totally have an adventure together, and you're just going to toss me in the ocean like some sort of common reptile? I'm Woodland's first female dictator, buddy. Sorry, said Kai, pulling the rope taut. You've given me what I needed to know, and I appreciate that. But it's clear that you don't understand your own motivations. Tell me, was it really your idea to find me? Or were you just acting on a feeling? Well, yeah, I had a feeling, but I hear that's common among your kind, said Max. I mean, I gave my hive hat to a preteen and crawled 3 miles through the snow so I could talk to you. Does that mean nothing to you? Why come alone? Why even go through all the trouble? Surely your family has better transportation. Our hovercraft broke down. Max's insides shivered, remembering how the hovercraft's engine fried just as he questioned if Dorian could take him. Kai nodded, his eyes scanning the woods nervously for a second. It's them, he muttered. They sent you, and you didn't even realize it. Sorry, Max. Maybe we'll meet again under different circumstances. Kai hoisted up Max in the boulder, reared his arm back, aimed him at the ocean, and froze. He looked around frantically, inexplicably less intent on throwing Max than he was a second ago. Do you feel that? He asked. Kai gasped and dropped Max a little too close to the fire for comfort. He carefully moved across the shore, reaching out as if trying to feel his way through a dark room. It's here, he whispered. It's here right now. Do you feel it? As crazy as it was to admit even to himself, Max did. There was a buzzing, almost electrical force in the air. The last time Max felt like this, he had been on Gaia, absorbing the endless supply of energy all around him. Kai felt around for a few more seconds, stopping as his hand grasped something invisible but undeniably there. Max's core processor detected a surge of Gaian energy, which was absolutely astounding because his core processor was in his nanobot body back in Indianapolis. Could it be possible that he was feeling it from so far away? For a mere blink of the eye, the emptiness in Kai's grasp became a transparent sword. Its image burned itself into their eyes, gleaming a brilliant blue that shone over the ocean, casting light all the way to the distant shore. The surge of Gaian energy was undeniable now, an endless well of power springing from the tiniest leak between worlds. With another flash of light, the sword disappeared as quickly as it had come. But there was something else there for the briefest of moments. Something visible all around them while the sword passed in and out of view. Not Earth, not even Gaia. Another island, hiding in the shadow of the two worlds. The water around them turned black and boiling, the entire ocean somehow lifting towards the sky while leaving the island untouched. Things watched them from the murky depths beyond the walls of water. Many-eyed, black things which Max had never dreamt could exist on any world. As the water continued to geyser up toward the heavens, the sky itself appeared to crack apart. Stars burned and streaked across the sky in detached blurs that contradicted every fundamental thing that Max understood about the universe. The full moon dimmed to a sickly orange and splintered apart into countless fragments. All of the life melted from the island itself, leaving them on a desolate black rock surrounded by the ascending ocean. Trees withered and shrank into the charred earth. Grass spasmed and burst into black flecks of ash, which were swept into the cold, howling wind all around them. Beyond the island, beyond the rising ocean and the things which slithered through its filth, even beyond the cracked and broken sky, there was an overwhelming impression of more. More things in the darkness, eyes watching from the great beyond. Creatures sniffing hungrily as if sensing a bloody chunk of meat tossed into their world. Crouching hordes which clawed and moaned at the light leaking from some other place. More disturbing than all of this was the sight right in front of their faces. Just beyond Kai and Max, standing on the blackened and jagged shore, were another Kai and Max. Max's doppelganger inhabited a nanobot shell, but it was all wrong. The silver chrome was rusted and looked as if the nanobots were struggling to stay together. The other Kai was slowly approaching the other Max, and he too looked different, gaunt and older, weary beyond description. They reached toward each other, and something appeared hanging in the air between them, a glimmering, dazzling blur, the only flicker of warmth in this awful place. The amorphous thing swirled and collapsed in upon itself, unmistakably transforming into Edgard's sword. Just as the other Kai's fingers brushed the edge of the hilt, this world disappeared, having only existed between one blink and the next. Max and Kai found themselves back on Earth, having never really left in the first place. Kai's hand gripped onto the empty space where the sword had been just a second ago. Gaian energy blinked out like a light, already feeling like a distant memory. Kai bent over and started panting. "Sweet holy freaking ratbags," Max cried. "Please tell me I wasn't the only one who saw that." Kai wiped the sweat from his brow. "Yes, I saw it." "And what the heck was it?" "It was us." "Well, duh, it was us. But... Kai had a distant look in his eyes, which was impressive because Max was pretty sure he'd be simultaneously throwing up and peeing his pants right now if he were human. "I've decided not to throw you into the ocean," said Kai. "Why? Was witnessing the very gates of hell crack open and spill out untold horrors a bonding experience or something?" "Yes. Didn't you see? You were giving me the sword. We can speak honestly now." Expanding to 9,872 maxes. Nope. He had nothing. Not a single way to rationalize anything from the last 4 hours. Each and every Max rammed his head against a brick wall for a second or two, and then disappeared in a puff of smoke. Contracting to Max Prime. "How could that have been me?" asked Max. "I'm me. Right? Right?" Sometimes the branches of time are swayed by the wind, past and future brushing together and briefly becoming one. There were exactly 10,469 questions that Max wanted to ask, but he simply went with a concise, "Huh?" "The sword," Kai said quietly. "It was made thousands of years ago. Maybe millions, maybe longer. Forged in the heat of a dying universe in a place far from our own. Far even from Gaia. Legends say that it was brought here to alter the natural course of time, to sever the branches that lead us to desolation, the consumer of worlds." "You said the sword wasn't responding?" Max nodded. "I see. It sleeps, only waking when a divide in history's branches come nearer. But I can feel it even here. The next division is coming closer. It's a big one this time. Maybe the big one. We need to go to Gaia as soon as possible. Warn them it's coming." "That what's coming?" "Gaia exists on the other side of this world, but there's another place beyond that, a shadow above both worlds. That's why the sword was forged, to keep this other place from finding us. The world that we saw just now, that's what is coming. Will you help me, Max?" Expanding to 10,987 maxes. Click. Something fell into place, and Max's entire mind resonated like a tuning bar. It was like he'd been putting together a billion-piece puzzle for the last year, and only just now was the faintest suggestion of an image coming together. Contracting. Please wait. Contracting. Contraction failed. Max expansion has reached an unsustainable range. Tug. I can help you. Max thought the words, but they refused to come out of his mouth. Kai stared at him expectantly. Tug. My sister has a mind bridge with a girl on Gaia. We can talk to them right now. Come on. Say it. The few syllables that escaped Max's mouth were unintelligible. Why was this so hard? The problem wasn't the damaged microchip in Tundra, either. It went deeper than that. Max's consciousness was stretching against his will. It was like something had seized on his moment of vulnerability, reached into his head, and was pulling his brain out of his ear. "Are you okay?" asked Kai. "Tug, you've gone far enough." Max thought these words without trying to, as if his thoughts were speaking to him. "I know who you are." "Say it, Max. Say, 'I know who you are.'" "I know who you are." The words came out in a staticky garble. Kai's eyes went wide at the statement. "So you figured it out?" he asked. "I'm..." 7. He contains multitudes. Far out, in every sense of the phrase. You've gone far enough. Max was standing on the internet, his feet planted on water which had gone completely flat. Monhegan Island was gone. Even Lil Flamey, the surfboard, was nowhere to be seen, and the lack of flames made Max go slower. The usual sunny sky had become a lifeless gray, and the chaotic sound of a billion things happening simultaneously on the information superhighway could only barely be heard, echoing from the incomprehensible distance. This was far out, in every sense of the phrase. If the waves of data weren't churning, then this was a mostly uninhabited corner of cyberspace. Mostly uninhabited because Max wasn't alone. A living shadow approached from the distance, each footstep bringing it far closer than what made physical sense. It moved effortlessly across the water, stopping silently before Max. "Who are you?" asked Max. "Why did you bring me here? How did you bring me here?" "No more questions," said the shadow. His voice was deep but unrecognizable, hollow and mechanical. "You've shown me what I need to know. Kai is trying to return to Gaia. He very nearly made it back tonight. This can't happen. The angels are on their way to end him soon." Max took a step backward, but the shadow moved perfectly in sync with him. "You're the one who's been following me, manipulating me." "No easy task. Your mind is nearly impenetrable, but only nearly. Don't worry, Max. Your task is done. You won't even remember this." The shadow reached forward, his index finger only barely touching the side of Max's head. Even the slightest contact sent a pain through his insides that he had never known could exist until this moment. He felt a transformation in a tiny part of his programming as if it was forcibly altered. Max summoned all his willpower as he grabbed the shadow's arm, pushing it away as hard as he could. The tiny budge was enough to keep the shadow from altering Max's mind a second time, but only just. Max tried several times to sever his connection to the internet and return to his body, but nothing happened. The shadow had him locked here in the clouds somehow, and trying to resist its force was like trying to lift a planet. The shadow cocked his head. "Don't fight this. I mean you no harm." "Nobody messes with my mind except me." Max divided in half, both versions of himself now gripping the shadow's arm and trying to push it away with all their might. He divided again and again. The 8 Maxes struggled against the shadow's reaching arm, which only grew larger with each division. It was nearly the size of an elephant now. "You cannot keep me out," said the shadow. "My mind is spread between 10 million servers across the globe. I am at the bottom of the ocean. I am circling the earth. I will be everywhere you try to run. And I contain multitudes." Max divided into 16, then 32, then 64, then 128. They all pushed at the same time, trying with all their collective might to shove the shadow out of their head. But it continued to grow larger and larger. He'd have to try harder. And my multitudes contain multitudes, expanding to 32,768 Maxes.
Every single Max swarmed forward, hurling their chrome bodies at the shadow, which had grown roughly to the size of a small moon. It swung its massive arm, sending several hundred Maxes screaming into cyberspace. The shadow flickered a few times like an old staticky television, yet the thing still pressed forward, threatening to eclipse the robotic army. And you'll never guess what the multitudes within my multitudes contain. Expanding to 65,536 Maxes. Warning, mind in danger of permanent fragmentation. He was spread so thin that not every Max could contain the entire Max consciousness matrix. Some of them were merely snarling beasts, created only to live and die in combat. A few particularly anxious Maxes pleaded to be reabsorbed immediately, bringing up the fact that their experience of time was dilating so unpredictably that they could very well get stuck here for what might feel like a million years in the span of a second. Either that, or they could emerge from this battle in what felt like 10 minutes to find that Marin was 86 years old and the world had become a post-apocalyptic, zombie-ridden wasteland in his absence. Neither of these scenarios would be preferable. "We've expanded too far," said Max 17,146. "We can fight him with less of us. Contract, now." "I don't trust this noob," said Max 89. "If we don't give it our all, we could get swallowed by this monster and stop existing altogether." They were interrupted by the sunglasses-wearing, machine-gun-wielding Max 10,834, who was always a rebel. He screamed at the top of his lungs as he charged towards battle, dividing in half and sending out 2 streams of bullets at the Shadow Colossus. "Shmurg de Moon Moon," commented Max 32,769 as he lobbed a grenade. Not quite having enough brain power to form a coherent thought, the shadow roared, scooped a gargantuan hand into the ocean, and tossed the equivalent of the Erie Canal at the front line of Maxes. A very surprised fish, which had strayed to this remote part of the ocean, was caught in the attack, activating as it breathed in the surface air. It turned into a shrieking clown, which spun several miles through the air, collided with an approaching battalion, and exploded in a spray of spicy mustard which melted a dozen Maxes and promised to haunt the remaining survivors' theoretical nightmares for years to come. Determined to avenge the fallen warriors, the army charged forth with a chaotic and unorganized attack as the collective will of the hive collapsed entirely. At least 5,000 Maxes exploded into spiders and crawled over the shadow, biting and spinning a web around an arm. Max 2000 morphed into Tundra, the turquoise turtle, and led a battalion of wood-land creatures to strike the shadow's left leg. A virtue-signaling Max became Skylar, the scarlet squirrel, just to be different, but soon put aside its political differences and united her troops with the Turtle Republic. "Dude, a bunch of us should get together and turn into a dragon," Max 42 said to anyone who would listen, which turned out to be nobody. Max 3, taking the form of Fane Monhegan, sprinted by while hurling fireballs into the air. Max 42 grabbed his shoulder. "You hear me, man? We'll need at least 300 of us. When are we going to get another chance to do this? Can you imagine us, totally smashing together and turning into a dang old dragon? Swimming around with our fins, breathing ice or something?" "Have you ever seen a dragon?" Max 4052 cut in, who had been spending most of his time criticizing the hymns around him from the underside of a tiny stone bridge. "Learn your lore, bro." "Sorry, I inherited 0 visualization skills from the one true Max. I don't remember what dragons look like, but I do know they're super cool. Seriously, gang, let's get all dragony up in here. Who's with me?" Once again, nobody was with him, because they were all smashed by a new Vermont-sized fist in the next instant. Max Prime watched everything from the center of his multitudes, getting increasingly worried. He spotted 2 Maxes who had gotten distracted, wandered off, and were kissing in a slightly less chaotic corner of the ocean. The Max Hive was having a hard time maintaining this level of entropy, but it was working. The Shadow Man was transparent now, and shrinking to the size of the smallest New Jersey landfill, which was admittedly still quite gigantic. They were evenly matched, which in itself was disturbing.
What was the point in destroying this thing if he lost his sanity in the process? The biggest red flag was when Max Prime spotted Max 96 turn into a big red flag and flop around uselessly on the surface of the water. Okay, it was time to call it. Contracting to Max Prime. Estimated time remaining, 76 seconds. Estimated time remaining, 10 million years. Estimated time remaining, 15 seconds. Thousands of Maxes began to vanish rapidly, but the shadow was thankfully shrinking in proportion. The battlefield dissolved into a single Max. The shadow stepped forward, kneeling and putting a finger on the back of Max's head. "It didn't have to be like this," said the shadow. The Max flopped over onto its side and replied with a decisive "Schmurgdermoon-moon." The shadow pulled his finger back. What? Max Prime leapt out of the ocean behind the shadow in a reverse dive, sending a spray of water and cat memes as he flung his arms wide. The gray clouds covering the sky cracked open, revealing a sun which shone down impossibly bright and cleared away the darkness which covered the Shadow Man. He became a solid person that turned and stared in surprise. But nothing could rival the surprise that Max now felt. Out of everyone in the Duoverse, this was the person that Max least expected to run into on this infinite ocean of knowledge. "You?" asked Max. The no longer Shadow Man smiled. "You have no idea what I am." He moved his hand forward, reaching all the way into Max's head. Everything became nothing. Much like the world itself, this time and place ended not with a bang, but with a whimper. Max 42 continued his tumbling descent through the ocean, surprised to find that he still existed. Last he remembered, he was trying to convince himself to turn into a dragon, and then a giant fist had sent the assorted hymns tumbling into the icy, circus-scented depths. He looked up to see the one true Max standing on the surface above. And who was that other dude? Max 42 squinted. Whoa. The Shadow Man wasn't a shadow anymore, that's for sure. Knowing that there was no way he'd ever be able to remember this moment, Max 42 fumbled around for his camera and snapped a picture. Ouch! He examined his hand, seeing that several fingers had melted off. Well, what now? Ones and zeros floated all around him, rapidly dissolving in the waters. This place wouldn't exist for much longer. He wouldn't exist for much longer. There wouldn't be more than a single millisecond left to make a decision. He considered taking a fragment of his memory, stuffing it into a bottle, and hurling it in the direction of the more populated waters in hopes that it would someday return to him. No, this wasn't a time to take chances. He knew what he needed to do. Max summoned hundreds of megaphones around him made of nothing but willpower, filled his imaginary lungs to the brim, and screamed into the void with the force of a sonic bomb. Kai! Kai! He's coming! Run! Run now! He waited. He watched. Did it work? He supposed he'd never really know. The torch had been passed. The sun glimmered through the waves. It was nice, but gone in a blink. The sun was gone, and then the clouds were gone, and then the ocean was gone, and then he was... Eight. Grand finale. He watches a bad movie and checks his email. A pillow on the couch. So how was your date with Destiny? Max sat up and stretched his nanobot shell. He had apparently been tossed onto a pillow in the living room at some point in the last few hours. Marin was in her pajamas, sprawled out on the couch while a bad horror movie played on their 3D projector. Max's mind buzzed from his incredible evening. His incredibly boring evening. Destiny was totally basic, said Max. She ordered a salad with ranch dressing and picked out all the pumpernickel croutons. Fanciest restaurant the internet has to offer, and she gets the side salad? I mean, who even counts calories when they're only imaginary? Marin yawned and scooped up a handful of popcorn. So I take it you couldn't find him?
No luck, said Max. Kai was long gone from Monhegan. Could be anywhere by now. I'm over it, if I'm being honest. Think of all the squirrel turtle I could have played instead. Hey, how was your date with what's their name? Chris with a K? Marin's face proceeded to do a gymnastics routine, going through a mix of contradictory reactions. You had a date? She cried. To herself. She spoke with a slightly different inflection than usual. Marin, I can't believe you didn't tell me. Can I see how it went? It's got to be in here somewhere. Stop rooting through my memories, Marin demanded, again to herself. Ladies and gentlemen, announced Max, surprise cameo from Kaya Monhegan. Isn't it just disgusting? 2 humans in 1 meat suit. There should be a law against this. Marin grimaced as she returned to her own steering wheel. Kaya, she asked, can I talk to Max for a second? Oh, don't mind me. Alone, please? Okay. Pause the movie. Marin's expression went through another unsettling series of transformations as Kaya returned to her universe. Give Fane a kiss and tell him it's from me, Max called after her. Marin held up a finger for a few seconds, her eyes darting around. Okay, she said finally. Kaya's back in her body. Every time the 2 of you do this, I feel like someone's walking over my grave. Humans are gross. No offense, filthy human. Max was struck with just how different Marin was acting now that Kaya was gone. A release valve had been opened, and her eyes were filling with tears. Why'd you have to say that? She asked. Say what? Why'd you have to mention my date? I didn't want you telling anyone. Well, normally when I talk to a person, I assume they're one person. Marin wiped her tears. Fair enough. Just assume I'm not alone from now on unless I tell you I am, okay? Oh my Dobbs, Max gasped. Are you dating Kaya? Because that's as cool as it is problematic. Marin hurled an unpopped kernel at Max. No, she insisted. That'd be like dating yourself. I've kissed myself on multiple occasions, no judgment here. I am not dating Kaya. There was no date tonight, okay? I got ready, went to head out the door, and Dad asked me where I was going. It's like a switch got flipped. I quietly freaked out and couldn't breathe all of a sudden. I just told him I wasn't going anywhere and went back to my room to cry. My date kept messaging me, so I blocked him. Didn't want to be alone. And you were gone, so I asked Kaya to hang out. So yeah, that's how my date went. Marin covered her face. Do you want to talk about it? Max asked. Yes, but no. Not right now. Maybe not ever. I don't know. I want to finish the movie with Kaya. She wouldn't understand. It's easy for her. The love of her life just happens to be the only boy close to her age on a literal island. And me, well, I don't even understand me. Can we just forget about this? Sure. This evening never happened. Max walked across the couch and leaned his head against her. She pulled him closer. Kaya's coming back now, she said. You want me to leave? Am I interrupting your slumber party? Can you stay with me? Or am I too boring? Looks like a girls' night just became a random assortment of lonely weirdos' night. Marin tensed again and spoke in a distantly not Marin voice. You didn't pause it. What'd I miss? Someone just got a mild to severe laceration on their flesh, said Max. That's happened like 10 times already, said Kaya. She tried to snap, but misjudged Marin's finger length. Hey, I meant to tell you guys that I took the sword back to Gull Cove tonight. It's still not working, but I felt something this time. It's hard to explain. I think the sword disappeared. Max experienced déjà vu, although the sensation of déjà vu itself brought about no déjà vu. How could he vaguely feel like he'd done something before when he remembered everything he'd ever done? The sword's gone? He asked. No, it only disappeared for a second. Maybe less. Are you sure you didn't just blink? Oh, I hadn't thought of that. It was really dark. She paused and looked at the projector. Wait, who's the woman with the rocket launcher? I'm so lost. Can you take it back? Where's the remote? I think we're both sitting on it, said Marin. Can you just start it over? Fane wants to watch too. He says thanks for the kiss, Max. Marin, do you mind if I do a trans-dimensional projection of your vision and hearing into his brain? Oh yeah, no problem. Max pretended to gag. I don't even have a mouth, and I think I just threw up a little bit in it. Marin ate a handful of popcorn, gasped, and then proceeded to have a conversation with herself. That's really good, said Kaya. Do you mind if we keep eating this? Is that white cheddar? Nutritional yeast, said Marin. Huh? Vegan thing. It's actually really good. You don't always have to say actually, Kaya. Can't my food just be good? Yeah. No, Fane, you can't try it. I told you I don't know how to project taste yet. No, I can't just try harder. Gaia, you're hot. Oh, sorry, guys. Meant to say that one on my side. Max's tin-man heart swelled with equal parts warmth and disgust. Look at us, he said. Snowed in together, eating popcorn from the same body, watching people gush obviously fake blood for our entertainment. My adventure might have been a dud, but if you ask me, isn't this right here what Christmas is really about? Fane says that no one asked you, said Kaya. And what's Christmas? Is that like Solstice Eve, with Papa Winter and the Sky Moose? Basically, yeah, said Marin, eating another handful of popcorn. We don't celebrate, though. I think it's like a month away. Yes, Max said. Friendship truly is the true Shut up, Max, said whoever happened to be in Marin's head at that moment. Spontaneous Combustion Victim 16, John Lynn. Rocket Launcher Grandma, Kylie Eberhard. The credits of The Lacerator 5, taking care of business in space, scrolled past on the 3D projector. Marin and or Kaya were both asleep on the couch, one arm hanging limply and half smothering Max. He didn't move, though. This was nice. This was human. He mindlessly divided and contracted several times. Ernesto was offline, and the only people playing Squirrel Turtle were kids who drank too much Summit Perspiration, trademark, past their bedtime. Good night, Woodland. Good night, The Chosen Buns 96. Good night, flashing email alert. Email alert? Max opened his seldom-used email account to see that it had a single new message. From himself. Mimicking the user's email address was a common phishing tactic among hackers, although the fact that it was able to get past Max's firewall was pretty impressive. Subject line. Hi, me. It's me. You. Max dragged the email over to his trash folder, but hesitated. He caught a brief glimpse of a tiny thumbnail attached to the email, and it was interesting enough for him to set aside his reservations and cautiously open the message. Thought you might find this interesting. The birds are him. He's... And the message stopped right there. Max would have written it off if not for the little thumbnail he had spotted earlier. He zoomed in, the image becoming pixelated. A few touches and some photo editing software cleaned it up a bit, but there was still a lot of guesswork involved. Well, Max whispered to himself, doing a quintuple take. Should I file this one away under Unsolved Mysteries of the Universe? Or Disturbing Fan Art? The perspective in this grainy image was bizarre in so many ways. It looked like whoever had taken it was under the ocean, but the surface of the water was completely flat. The clouds in the sky were split open in a wholly unnatural way, and the sun shining down looked like something off the cover of a fantasy novel. Craziest of all were the two figures standing atop the water. The first was no more than a tiny gray blob, and the second... Max immediately tossed the email into the garbage with a shudder, followed by a dangerous amount of lighter fluid and a lit match. His touch-up of the image had obviously been influenced by his subconscious, because what he had just seen was impossible. The second figure, that young man with flaming red hair and silvery, knowing eyes, was unmistakably his grandfather, Duncan Casey, the Crucifier. To be continued in A Path of Branches, the Mindbridge Trilogy, Book 2. Afterword. I wrote The Bridge, the Mindbridge Trilogy Book 1, not knowing if more than a handful of friends and family would read it. Some days I see the download figures for various versions of the book, or watch the views of the YouTube edition continue to climb, and I'm like, who are these people? Are they really reading this book? My book? Impossible. Impossible! If you read The Bridge without leaving a review, and then forged ahead and read this novella, please consider letting me know that you're out there and sharing your thoughts on the first book. Leaving an honest review of The Bridge on Goodreads or your favorite retailer's website will literally make my day. My very best. Joe Luegers, writer-musician.